Hello to everyone watching this video. I am New Sensei. For those who don't know me, I am an archer. I am an archery instructor and I'm the president of an archery club based in Australia. In my other life, I am a high school teacher. Now, one thing that many people don't know about me is that I like cats. I'm not really a pet person. I've never really owned a pet myself. But I do adore those furry felines who may not necessarily like you, but I do like them. At no point in my life have I ever felt the desire to shoot a cat. Now, why am I pondering over this lack of desire to harm our feline friends? Well, over the past few days, there's been a lot of uproar regarding an incident which was reported in Adelaide, and that involved the shooting of a pet. Now, this happened, as I said before, in Adelaide. The actual incident involved a person using a compound bow who shot a cat 4 times. This cat had to be taken to the vet and was later euthanized. As with many incidents, this has caused tremendous uproar on Facebook and other places on the basis of the animal cruelty shown by archers and another call for the restriction of the purchase and ownership of bows and arrows. Now, this isn't the only incident which has happened in recent history. Often you will see posts and reports of local wildlife being shot at by people with bows. We've seen emus, galahs, kangaroos, all of which have been inhumanely shot and wounded, if not killed. So the question now for a lot of people is, well, what does this mean for archery? And I'm making this video and this commentary not just to archers, but also to the general public, people who have felt that call to action, that need to call out people with bows and arrows and to start petitioning to politicians and lawmakers to enact laws to regulate the ownership of bows. So, in this video, I'm going to break down several things. Firstly, I want to talk about the idea of animal cruelty, about why it happens or when it happens and what happens. I also want to talk about the perception of bows and arrows and archery in general, as well as, well, the people who are affected by any change in laws regarding the ownership of bows. Firstly, let's talk about animal cruelty. Now, as reported and as many of you have read, the animals are shot by people with bows, and normally these are compound bows, often bought from eBay or other online sites for a very low price. Same with the arrows, they're very cheap. Online purchased arrows, which can be bought by anyone. There is no licensing required. There is no regulation required. You don't need a membership of a shooting club or an archery club or an archery association to own a bow. It's one of those things which is not regulated. Unlike crossbows, which are considered a weapon in many jurisdictions and they do require licenses, but recurve bows and compound bows are not restricted. So what has been reported is that pets and sometimes people have been shot at by bows. This concerns me, obviously because it's cruelty to animals, but also because the people who get the blame, the finger gets pointed to certain people or groups, and these people have nothing to do with the incident. Not long ago, my club was sent a notice from a member of a local area who reported again the wounding of a pet by an arrow. And I kind of understand where this comes from the person who reported this. There's a lot of distress, and the first place to go to is the archery club. At the same time, as the the owner or the executive of an archery club, and as an archer myself, I'm not sure how this works. I'm not sure why they come to us, because we aren't the ones who are doing this. An archery club is a sporting club. We practice sport. We practice competition. The idea being that many of us might have dreams of competing at state or national or Olympic level. So when a report of wildlife being shot at by people with bows doesn't necessarily mean that the club, no, in fact, it doesn't mean the club is involved, because our members would not do that. No member of an archery association would harm an animal. That is not why they own a bow. I would say universally that every single archer is opposed, undoubtedly, unanimously, against animal cruelty. We do not see any form of animal cruelty as entertaining. We are people. We are humans. We respect other people and respect animals and nature. We have no intent at all, and never have any intent to harm animals. That is not the way of a recreational or sport archer. So when people put the blame on us, when people present us in local media as the sources of any incident involving bows and arrows, it is not us. We have absolutely no association to these people. Now, at the same time, you might argue, well, about hunters. Well, hunters are also not inhumane. Now, I know a lot of people are opposed to hunting. You go on Facebook, you see a lot of people who, in the comfort of living an urban life, they're used to getting their food from the supermarket and don't see hunting animals as a worthwhile pursuit in any way. I personally, while I don't hunt, I have to respect hunters. Because every hunter I've talked to and every hunter I know is a humane hunter. And there is such a thing. A humane hunter understands the ethics of hunting. They're not randomly shooting animals for fun or for trophies. We're not talking about that one person who might go to South Africa to hunt a lion. We're talking people who hunt possibly because of population control or pest control, partly because they might need to gather food, and they use every part of the animal which they harvest. And that is the way things have gone for a long time. And I'm not here to argue about the ethics of hunting, but I do know that the majority of hunters, if not every hunter, understands the need for ethics even in hunting. The people who are shooting these animals, these birds and kangaroos and pets, these are not hunters. I believe the correct term for these people is dickheads. I don't need to explain this further. Not everybody who owns a bow is a hunter. Not every hunter is a reckless, psychopathic animal torturer. The people who you see in these reports are nobodies. People who have too much time and no sense of humanity, who are going out there and making everyone look bad. Not just archery, but everyone look bad. And I think it's very important that if you're watching this and you are coming in with the mindset that all archers are bad, we should ban archery, we should ban bows, understand that this is not part of archery. They are not archers. So archery as a whole cannot be held accountable for what these people do. We have at no point been associated with these criminals. Understand that if a hunter truly wanted to kill an animal, they would do so with the least amount of suffering possible. They would not shoot an animal and leave it to suffer for days. That is not hunting. And again, no bow hunter and no sport archer would even consider doing what has been done in this report. The next thing I want to talk about is the perception of bows as being dangerous. This is reported every time an incident happens, that bows are described as lethal or designed only to kill, and other hyperbolic words which bring about the connotation of murderous weapons, that all archers have deadly weapons. Please, I carry a bow with me in my car. Am I endangering the lives of my students by carrying a bow with me? Is that the perception that people want to put on me as an archer? Because bows, and this may sound strange to you for those who aren't archers, bows actually aren't that dangerous. Yes, they were designed for war, they were designed for hunting, and yes, they can kill. But the use of bows in this manner ended hundreds of years ago. Bows today are a sport and a recreational tool. Nothing more. The actual damage a bow can do is very, very little. Now, often in these articles, the people, the experts, or the local authorities, or the politicians, they will describe the most dangerous tools, the most dangerous forms. Yes, there are broadheads. The broadheads are the razor-sharp points which are used to slice flesh. Not to inflict suffering, but to cut arteries and to help the animal bleed out as soon as possible. That is what hunters use for the cleanest possible kill. Now, what happens in these incidents with these pets and other undeserved attacks on animals? These arrows are not broadheads, and this is easily proven. If you look at the photographs and the evidence supplied, because these arrows are retained, these arrows do not have broadheads. They have field points, and field points are simple, straight bullet points. There are other points as well. There are target points, which are blunt and designed purely for target shooting, but the arrows being used are not broadheads, because if it was a broadhead being used, firstly, it is of course extremely dangerous. At the same time, an animal hit by a broadhead is likely to die very soon. They would not be left to suffer for hours, unlike a field tip. Now, the actual danger of a field tip, and this is for those who are fearing their lives. So if their neighbor has a bow, will this neighbor shoot you and kill you? Firstly, actually hitting something is a lot harder than it looks. Even a compound bow, which is supposedly easy to use, does require time and skill to shoot accurately. And the danger of being hit by someone with a bow is actually quite low. Most people are really, really bad shots, so that's not really an open threat. In terms of the equipment used, if they're using a standard field point, which again, most bows and arrows that you buy, especially off the internet, are field points. If you are going to use that, how much damage would it do? Very little. These arrows are not designed to kill. They're designed purely for shooting at solid objects, like targets or tree stumps, not people. It is actually quite likely that if you're wearing a thick coat, that the arrow might simply deflect off your coat or off your wallet or off your mobile phone. There are incidents where people have been attacked and stabbed with arrows, and the arrow has actually done absolutely nothing to poke a hole in someone's jacket. Arrows and bows, unless shot from a very powerful bow, are not particularly strong. Unlike a bullet from a firearm, which could cause significant injury, which, by the way, most gunshot victims do recover if taken to hospital on time. But with an arrow, that does even less damage. It is unlikely that you will kill somebody with a single shot. It would not inflict much bleeding, if any at all. It results in a fairly small puncture wound, and it will not kill you. Unless it hits a very critical part of your body, it won't kill you. So the fact that I've got 100 arrows in my house right now, and about 500 arrows lying around somewhere at the club, that doesn't mean I have a fully stocked arsenal that can take on the next Russian invasion. Right? Bows are not that useful as weapons. They can be, but the majority of bows are not dangerous. And the reports which you see highly exaggerate what people use and what is available out there. And what is used against these animals is not the hunting style equipment. These are recreational arrows which are being misused by irresponsible people. On that note, we have to talk about who to blame. And understandably, people who read these reports are distressed. I'm distressed. And when people are upset and emotionally charged, they want to cry out for a call to action. And unfortunately, especially if you follow comments on Facebook and everywhere else, this call to action has been sorely misled. Because the archery community is not who you should be blaming. We are not the targets. We understand that what happened is unacceptable. It is inhumane, and no sane person would ever do such a thing, let alone an archer. The people who are doing this are not sane people. They are psychopaths. These are people who have no emotion, who have no understanding of the suffering that animals or people can go through. They think that they can inflict harm with no consequence. And unfortunately, no matter what you do, these people will find a way. You could ban bows and arrows. They'll use a homemade slingshot. They'll use a kitchen knife. They'll use their bare hands. They will find a way to entertain themselves without the understanding, without that empathy that most humans have. So while you are angry, while you are extremely distressed and upset and furious and irate, and you want to call for a large action to be taken to regulate bows and arrows, to require licenses or require registrations, just think about for a moment who's going to be most affected by this. Does the solution actually solve the problem? Will banning bows and arrows stop a psychopath? Or do you think it might affect the thousands, the tens of thousands of people in this country who use archery as a way to relax, as a sport with no intent ever to point the bow at a living thing? And some will. Some are legitimate ethical hunters. But the majority of archers in Australia are legitimate, law-abiding citizens who do the right thing. Why should the actions of a dozen or so people, and do bear in mind, this is actually a rare occurrence. Every time the reports come up, they say that the increasing number of arrows that are being shot at animals. Is it really that common, firstly? And secondly, why should the actions of these dozen incidents, these dozen people, these idiots, ruin the experience, the sporting experience, the recreational experience of tens of thousands of people who do the right thing? Again, the people who do these things are dickheads. They have no association with archery. We as an archery community disown everything that these people do. These people were never part of the archery community. I will not stress that enough. These people are not archers. These people are not hunters. These people are not people. If you're going to be angry at something and have a call to action, then direct your anger at these individuals and make sure that these individuals are punished to the full extent of the law, because that's how you make change, by making sure the law punishes these people appropriately and not let them off lightly. But if you take that anger and apply it to those tens of thousands of innocent people, then we are barking up the wrong tree. We are chasing down the wrong path. That is not the way to solve problems. Because what that would do instead is to alienate and divide a community, especially one which has done no harm. So, on behalf of the entire archery community in Australia and worldwide, we obviously are insulted and upset and hurt by the actions of these very, very small number of people who we don't know and have nothing to do with. We disown everything that has happened to these animals. which have been hurt or killed purely as a form of sick entertainment. We also want you to know that we stand behind you in ensuring the welfare of animals. But we want you to understand that we are not responsible. Our tools are not responsible. Our equipment is not responsible. And we ask that in your decision making, in your consideration, in your lobbying of controlling bows and arrows and ownership and purchasing, we want you to understand why people actually use bows and arrows. The real reasons. The reasons which are there for us to enjoy as a sport, as a hobby, and as a recreation. To my neighbour, that thing which you might consider to be a weapon of mass destruction is intended to be used to win gold medals at the Olympic Games, not to hurt your cat. To everyone else, especially those who have been strongly disturbed by these incidents, I would like to ask you to remember to act civilly towards other people, to think rationally, and to consider the wider context of what is happening and how it would impact everyone, not just the very few, but the people who are doing the right thing. I sincerely hope that this sort of thing does not happen again, and if it does, then the people involved, and only those people, are punished accordingly. This is Nu Sensei. I hope this has meant something to you. I'll see you next time.